All right, that was Big Pun and Joe, still not a player, and many in this country are not. Ask America for essential workers to get $15 an hour and see how much rancor and anger you get. See how much division there is. See how many people say we can't afford it. But subsequently, ask America to give the wealthiest people on the face of the earth a tax cut because they need more. I don't know if you were in the habit of building houses, no one would build a house from the bottom down. They would build it, they wouldn't build it from the top down, they would build it from the bottom up. But we can provide the wealthiest people on the face of the earth with tax cuts. There are families that are worth more than half of the United States of America, but they need more. We can't afford to give people who have picked our food and taken care of our elderly and risked their lives during this pandemic. We can't afford to give them $8 more an hour. $15 an hour would break those very people who we just gave all this money to, who just got all the benefit of these tax cuts. It can't happen. They can't afford it. No one can afford in the United States of America or practically anywhere in the industrialized world to live for $7 and $50 an hour. But people who run this country, people who govern this country, have given themselves 15 or 16 raises in that period of time and never once for them. Not even to count for inflation. What can you get literally for $7.50 an hour? Do you know anybody anywhere that you know can live off $7.50 an hour? But they tell us it's possible and refuse to do anything about it. The wealthy people that just got these tax cuts that are now wealthier than they ever have been before, they're exponentially more wealthy. They can't afford $8 an hour. They can't afford it. It would break them. What about the small business people? What about them? What about the poor people that serve those small business people? Because what happens invariably is much like very rich people get a lot of benefits, pay nothing back in. Then all of a sudden, those people, their employees, they need public assistance. They need food stamps. They need child care credits. They need various other things. They need health care. Who pays for it? The public. So the public, again, is paying for very rich people to keep their money and shortchange their employees. It's people in the military right now that are on public assistance. The problem is that this country seems to have an aversion to poor people. It seems to despise them. To be poor in America, it is so expensive in America to be poor that almost no one can afford to do it. And even the fact that we are now trying to address a wealth gap, a money disparity, we are arguing. We didn't have this kind of rancor when rich people wanted a tax cut, and they got it. They got it. They got even wealthier. Right now, when the people who need it the most, the people who work the hardest, the people who sacrifice the most, we're having a problem giving them just the minimal to survive. Who can live off the $7.50 an hour that the Congress and Senate seem to be saying it's okay? How many of their constituents are on public assistance because they can't afford it? How many of them work very hard but still don't have enough to meet their daily needs? But we give the wealthiest everything they need. They can take and take and take and take, and then we're constantly being told as a society that they can't afford it. Society can't afford to keep turning its back on the wealth, on the least of our society, because in the end, those people become a drain on it. Where do you think they go if they get sick? Where do you think they go if they get hurt? Where do you think they go if they become unemployed? Where do you think they go if they need child care? They come to the public. They come to taxpayers. Those very taxpayers who've now had to give a tax cut to the very richest people on the face of the earth. This is a nation that prides itself on being a nation of Judeo-Christian society, that the poor among us are who we should look out for. But do we? Do we? Right now in America, there are people who forward the notion that you could live off $11 an hour. Could you? Could you? If you're an elected official and you have decided that $7.50 an hour or $11.50 an hour, or even $15 an hour is adequate, I suggest instead of you giving yourself raises and voting for yourself to have raises and your wealthy constituents to have raises, you live off of it. Live off it for a month. Actually have to live off the things that you're telling people that they have to live off it for a month and see how well you do. This is a kind of a reverse Robin Hood. We're robbing from the poor and giving it to the rich. And that is governance. That's a little note from the GED section. We got the Jazz Report coming up in 15 minutes. It's the D.L. Hughley Show.